everyone, welcome to another episode of BFF, a show where two best friends review movies because fan friction. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Ashley.
I'm Joe.
All right, so this is the third episode of BFF, and I feel like as we're going through the episodes this season, like our premises kind of keeps getting like a little bit skewed. There haven't been a whole lot of movie choices in these episodes.
Right.
Especially with the TV format, which is fine. The reason why we don't review or we haven't been reviewing TV shows yet is just a time issue.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to watch, there's some series, like I've seen a lot of Supernatural and you've seen literally none of it.
I've seen a few episodes.
Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things.
grand scheme of things, I've seen almost nothing.
Yeah. And not that Supernatural's popped up as something, but it in theory could at some point.
And that's what, like 10 or 11 seasons?
Yeah, around there.
And even more. Something that only has 1 or 2 seasons, it's still a time commitment. And sure, we could review an episode in isolation, but then you don't get all the context, and that could skew your opinion. So just for now, it's just easier to stick with movies. And since this is the first episode where, we're actually a fact-checking duo, neither one of us kind of have a dog in the race, so to speak. Our opinions on, especially in the third segment, will probably be a little more nuanced since we won't be biased.
Yeah. I don't think we are anyway, but...
Well, maybe just a little. This week, the only things that we hadn't seen were Flash and Supergirl, because one of the questions was based off the crossover episode.
Yep.
And again, because television takes way too long for right now, that's something that we would put on hold. And, probably something that we wouldn't have watched normally. We're just not really into network television, per se.
We're discovering that, especially after this week.
Yeah. So, again, the only choice that we really had was The Running Man, which is not... one of the films any fighter chose, but was actually the basis of a question. And so it's just, what we talked about it. This is just kind of the easiest one to go with in a movie that, I've kind of forgot existed.
It's definitely not a normal movie you think of when you think of Schwarzenegger's career.
Yeah, the only things I really know about The Running Man are that it's a science fiction film. It's kind of based on the question context. There's some kind of game show element.
Yep. It's very 80s dystopian sci-fi, and typically, and this is just from personal experience, there's not like a definition somewhere, but 80s dystopian sci-fi is usually like society's still up and standing, and there are parts of it where it's all idyllic, but it's usually built on the backs of the people that can't afford a lot, like RoboCop, and there's even older stuff is kind of inspired this, like Soylent Green and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Where there's like a really nice upper class, and they kind of have everything, and then there's everyone else.
So is this kind of like the precursor to the Hunger Games, maybe? Like one person has to beat up a bunch of people, or
kinda, but it's less.
Kill them?
It's less like. I guess it's less like World War III homaging and more natural evolution of Japanese game shows.
All right, so like Smash TV, kind of that video
Smash
game?
TV comes to mind, yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and the only other thing that I think I remember about this movie is it's probably written by one of the prolific science fiction authors, or based on a book by them, rather.
Or inspired by, or whatever.
We're going to go watch this, and we'll come back and rate the movie on its own merits.
Sounds good. Hey guys, we're back from watching the movie. And
The Running Man. Oh, man.
Holy crap, it's awesome.
Why have I never seen this before? I have no clue, because I just loved everything about the movie. Seriously, picking something that's my favorite is going to be so difficult. What about you?
It is probably, if it's not my absolute favorite Schwarzenegger movie, it's got to be in my top 3.
This is definitely my new favorite Schwarzenegger film. Oh my gosh, this movie just was so hilarious. And just like in a sad way because of the dystopian future and the fact that it takes place in the year 2017 through 2019. Yeah, like, oh my gosh, like if certain things happen, like this could be our future, people. Huh. But the way they portray it in the film, that this has been going on for a long time, and this is just kind of the society that most people understand and are accepting of. And, you know, lots of it, because I've seen the Hunger Games first, I did see elements where the Hunger Games borrowed from this film.
Oh, yeah.
With, like, when they were prepping Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, Ben Richards, to participate in the Running Man game show. And there were some other elements that were very similar with the propaganda and just I thought, a very tight story.
With the producers of the show replacing the game makers.
Yes, lots of elements that obviously, again, they borrowed from, but just this movie was fabulous. Like, there's just so much that was wonderful about it. Like, again, I just cannot believe I've never watched this before. This is like the perfect movie for me. I love dystopian things and satire, and I can definitely a product of the Cold War, but trying to show us, okay, like if we let like totalitarianism reign, then this is the kind of thing that's going to happen to our society. And just like the craving of television, and like we must always be entertained so that we're not questioning society.
Bread and circus.
And then like the dichotomy of the haves and have-nots.
Yep.
Just like this movie, if you haven't seen it, you seriously need to go watch it right now. It's on Netflix.
It's on par with movies like RoboCop insofar that it's got like actual serious like elements to it, to the point of like it's commentary on society, veneered with just sickeningly hilarious action, like a million fantastically used one-liners,
and so perfect. And whereas in other movies, like the one-liners are just like, really, why are we doing this? It just felt so perfect for this movie. And,
well, I think part of it's Arnold.
And his delivery is
part
great.
Part of it's the 80s.
Yeah.
Part of it's the fact that we are watching a movie about a murdering game show.
Yes.
So it's all this stuff is very accepting.
Yeah, and like with some of the preliminary fact checks I was doing, like, but kind of based on some real Japanese game shows that obviously don't go quite as far as this game does, but that had some kind of torturing elements where the participants had to suffer. And then apparently this movie inspired American Gladiators. Remember that show?
Doesn't surprise me, yeah.
If you haven't seen the American Gladiators, you are not 32 years old.
Well, they redid it recently.
Oh, they did?
In the past 5 or 6 years. Okay, and it only lasted like one season, I think.
All right, well, and then Richard Dawson as the host, like, he is just so perfect as Damon Killian.
And you see it a lot where, like, the really fantastic roles done by actors, you get that from them because you feel like they're having a good time. Yeah, and it feels like he's really cutting loose,
reveling in just being this, like, on television he's one way, and then behind the scenes with his cronies, like, he is just totally, like, evil and just rude to everybody, and he just seemed to, again, like you said, just really enjoy himself.
Oh yeah, a good, like, a good villain. Usually you can see being a good villain because the actor is having fun playing that villain. If they're enjoying the role, they're going to commit to it and they're going to have a good time. Most of the time.
Yeah, and I thought the plot of the movie really was very strong, and I love the joke that one of the producers makes at the end. Is like, we don't need third act problems because Arnold's character, Richards, is killing all of the stalkers. And which apparently
is not a common thing.
No,
these are stalkers only die every once in a while.
It's these rare. Are like the people that you are supposed to root for in this show, and Richards is just turning the tables on this, where the audience is starting to go, you know what, like, we want to root for him because, like, he is just like awesome. Just so awesome, and just taking over and making people, like, question society a little bit.
One of my favorite parts is when the old woman that's introduced, like, when the game show begins as like the biggest fan of the show or something like that. She at one point, Richard Dawkins' character, Dawson, Richard Dawson, no, different
guy.
Richard Dawson's character, Killian, I think.
Damon Killian.
Yeah. asked her, like, so who do you think is going to get the next kill? And she was like, oh, Ben Richards.
And they're like, but ma'am, you have to choose an actual stalker.
And she's like, no, because he's a BAMF.
Yes, just very, like, and you kind of get the feeling that because she's older, and for how long that Dawson says, like, how things have been working in this society. Like, she probably remembers what the world was like before.
She probably
all
was
of the dystopian,
in her 30s in the 80s.
Yeah, dystopian kind of thing. So, yeah, she definitely is like, no, like, this is awesome. And one of my favorite elements in the movie was definitely the juxtaposition of what was real and what was propaganda. Mm-hmm. Like, we learn about that very quickly when they talk about, Ben is like this monstrous person that killed all of these innocent people, and we know because we've seen the beginning of the movie that that's not true. Like, he tried to stop all of the massacre at Bakersfield, and in the media they are showing these images of him like going against orders and just all the fabricated elements that the messages that they're sending out to the people to keep them in line.
Oh, yeah.
And then, which I thought was interesting because they show the winners of the last year's The Running Man, and I didn't even think that would be propaganda too, but then when they revealed that later in the movie, which I thought it was good to wait till later to do that, like, oh yeah, of course that was propaganda. Why would anybody let them win this game? These are criminals that are in the games. That makes total sense. And I just love the ending where they reveal, like, they hack the satellite and show like all the true things and
the actual events from Bakersfield, and then what the actual fate of the winners and things like that. So it's a fantastic movie.
Solid movie, and I just can't say enough good things about this.
If you have not seen this movie,
it so holds up. The only things that are kind of dated are the outfits, because
the technology.
Because it's definitely like the 80s never ended, even though it's supposed to be 2017 through 19.
See, it's funny too because they have, like, you can really tell, like, the technology is super dated because it's set in 2017-ish around there.
Yeah, and there's no internet.
And there's monochromatic screens.
Yeah,
like all their computer screens are all monochromatic. And
everything is analog. They have cassette tapes.
Yeah, so
just all the performances in this movie were just brilliant. There was only one part that I was like, because throughout the whole movie, I was definitely, oh my gosh, this movie is so awesome. This is so awesome. And then they had that song at the end. I was like, really?
Yeah.
So that was the only thing it was a little too on the nose for me, where it was like this is no game or whatever they said. It was just brilliant.
So,
but
can't praise it enough.
Yeah.
Go watch it.
So what would you give it out of 10?
I want to say 10 out of 10, but like I'm gonna hedge that if I rewatched it, I'm sure I'm gonna find something to nitpick. Flaw. So I'm gonna do like a 9.5.
I'm gonna go definitely 9.5 out of 10, just because the only part I ever questioned anything was when they played that song at the end. It was a little too on the nose. I'm
gonna point out that there was a cameo from one of my childhood icons growing up. Killian's Killian, whatever. Dawson's henchman, the big muscular henchman dude, was on a show I watched growing up called Captain Power and the Soldiers of the Future. Was
that the one that betrayed him at the end?
Yeah.
Okay, that was awesome.
That was like, I've got to go score some steroids.
Yeah. You knew that was coming when he treated him bad in the control room.
So, just a little side note.
Yeah, well, it's about time for us to wrap this portion of the show up, and coming up next is the fan friction episode.
After fan friction part.
The after fan friction part. If we could get this all done in one take, that'd be awesome.
We are getting this done in one take.
So yeah, we're going to report back where we're going to look at how the fighters, they each chose a new game show host.
Yep.
And a new
they
stalker.
Proposed a new stalker.
So we'll see how that all holds up, and we'll definitely be reading some of y'all's tweets about what y'all thought. So yeah, Joe will be doing that. So
we'll see you there.
Alrighty, later.
Bye.
Alright. right, everyone, we're back, and Fan Friction episode 203 has wrapped, and we're still excited to be talking about everything Running Man. I just cannot sing the praises of that movie enough.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie, a whole bunch of fun, some great social commentary, and it's just in general just fun. Like, we weren't necessarily looking super forward to go to this movie ahead of the movie, but yeah, we're still enamored with it.
So thanks, Jack, for picking that movie as the question stem. In fact, his question was, you're the producer for a remake of 1987's The Running Man. What game show host should take the role of Damon Killian? Also create a new stalker to chase the runners. And so we're here to discuss all of the choices from our three competitors, Raul, Tom, and Hector.
All right, well, Raul chose Wayne Brady to play Damon Killian, and his stalker was the Whisper, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Tom chose Drew Carey to play Damon Killian, and his stalker was the Cannibal by Andy Serkis. I believe his name was Patches.
Yes, Patches.
And Hector chose Steve Harvey to play Damon Killian, and the Samurai, played by Brian T. as the stalker.
Who was in the recent Ninja Turtles movie as Shredder.
Also in some of the Fast and Furious.
Yes. We're going to kind of just rank all three of the answers. So this is kind of a challenge because it's like, okay, they all chose really great hosts.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of nixed ranking it based just on the host, because how can you compare Steve Harvey, Drew Carey, and Wayne Brady? I think
they're all fantastic.
All three of them, if we were to remake this movie, would be really great choices just for different reasons. Like Hector said, Steve Harvey has an edge to him. Tom talking about, Drew Carey, and he does have a lot of the audience rapport and talking with people on The Price is Right.
Yep.
And who wouldn't want to see an evil Wayne Brady again?
And that's the thing; it would be fantastic cast against type.
Yes.
Because he normally is that very wholesome figure, probably 100% more wholesome in general than the other two, which is why that one Chappelle Show sketch worked so well at the time, because you would never imagine Wayne Brady saying something like that.
It's Wayne Brady. Everybody loves Wayne Brady, and now he's talking about doing unspeakable things.
So that's why it would probably work really well, as it's against type. So the host is not the part we used heavily to rank this situation. It was the stalkers. Mm-hmm. And for me personally, I got to give it to Hector, because as my top, my best for it, because the Samurai fits so thematically within the Running Man. But whenever he talked about the Samurai turning and helping Richards in the end and things like that, that's where you have your differentiation, because it was talked about, how true do you need to be to the source material? And
that was a huge debate, especially going on not so much with Hector. He was kind of pulling that tactic where I'm just going to sit and let the other two people just tear each other apart. And man, that was so brutal, watching Tom and Raul just go back and forth after each other, because those are our friends, and it's oh my god, our friends are fighting. It's your brothers fighting.
There's no mercy in this dojo.
Yes, but it was so interesting just to see Raul would say something, Tom would say something, and then just the facial expressions alone in the round were just glorious, just to see everybody reacting, and Hector's just biding his time. It's I'm going to let them talk, and then I'll get my final point, and then we'll all be good.
But the Samurai kind of fits the same theme that a lot of the stalkers did previously, where they wore a flashy outfit, they had a signature weapon or a signature combat style, and they were caricature more than they were gladiators.
Yeah, I loved how he talked about it's a stereotyped character, and in that kind of game show, that definitely works with the tropes instead of against them.
Yep. And
I like how he talked about, and as you've stated already, that maybe this character would cast aside his costume and end up helping
Richards.
Which
that's a really good way to deviate from the original source material and make it its own movie.
Yeah, because that's definitely, anytime you have a remake, it's how much
new and how much old.
Yeah, because if you go just exactly like shot for shot remake, then people are just like, why did you do that? Just go watch the original.
Yeah.
You didn't bring anything new to the table. But then if you change too many things, people get mad and go, okay, well, that's like you put this new story out and just called it The Running Man, and it has nothing to do with it. And then like for like Tom's character, the cannibal played by Andy Serkis, as you said, Patches, it felt like it could fit in that world, but maybe not. Like there was just something a little off about that choice.
The concept of it, yeah. From everything about that movie to me personally, he wouldn't be a stalker. He wouldn't be your traditional concept of a stalker, because the stalkers are something Damon Killian as a control for the subject. And in some way Tom tried to point that out, that like it would add some randomness and chaos to it, but that wouldn't be what a stalker is. A stalker would be the control element of this little experiment, so to speak. So it would be something Damon Killian could direct and things like that. Now, that being said, I think the cannibal would be fantastic in general for a movie like this. Like if we could have the samurai and also the cannibal in it, because he would be like, I just get this image of like a former contestant on The Running Man that wasn't caught but also didn't make it to the end. So he's just been living down there in the ruins of the city for 15 years, living off of whatever scraps he could find. And then you also have, like in the movie, there's that resistance fighter group that has a base down there too. That they also, like, it's like a boogeyman tale to them, to where like they don't go out unless they go out in like a group of 4 or something with weapons, because otherwise they're not going to be able to defend themselves from this thing. And I mean, he's not even human anymore at that point. So
yeah, I think that could be an interesting take on that situation. And then with Raul's choice of the Whisper, and I think Hector pointed it out maybe a little more than Tom, like that would be a game-breaking character, because you wouldn't be able to control what happens. And I think Tom brought up the fact that, you know, you're trying to bet on this game.
And he's fixing the game.
Yeah, like there would be you would not be able to bet on the game anymore, because who knows what's going to happen if somebody has that level of power. So yeah, like in the remake aspect, like Raul was trying to go original, but in that way where it goes too far, where like a lot of fans would be upset if that were the case.
Yeah.
But I loved his pitch for Wayne Brady and just the sinisterness, especially when he talked about like the lady, like, I want to vote for Richards, and it's like, let's go to commercial. And it's like, you need to kill her right now, you know. Yeah. And he said the line, but
get that bee out of here.
Yeah, I thought that was probably out of the hosts, he sold that to me the best.
Yes.
But his stalker was not really working for the concept of the movie.
I think at the end of the day, the only one that would be acting different, would actually be full on acting, would be Wayne Brady.
Yeah.
Because I think if Drew Carey and Steve Harvey came into it, they'd just kind of be themselves.
Yeah.
And Wayne Brady would be, but then he'd have to turn and do the Damon Killian stuff. And it's the thing, Wayne Brady and Steve Harvey, it's not like they're psychotic, murdering, like no regard for life people, but they do have a little more of an edge to them, because they do come from a darker comedy background.
Oh, definitely.
Or they can use that concept and terminology. But with Wayne Brady, he's so squeaky clean that whenever he turns around and does the Damon Killian stuff, it's so jarring and cool and hilarious. But yeah.
Yeah, and Drew Carey would be kind of an interesting host, but I definitely think Tom's stalker was the most interesting part about his pitch, and so I think that's probably where he lost some points with Jack. And like, especially like in his intro round, like he talked way more about the stalker, and it's like, oh yeah, well, who's your host? Oh yeah, it's Drew Carey, and he talked a little about that. And then definitely, like, you know, Hector's choice, his stalker was also really strong, but he also was able to talk enough about how Steve Harvey has that darkness and edge to him where he could do both. And I bet if Raul had a stalker that was as compelling as the samurai was, I bet he could have taken it.
Yes.
Because that Wayne Brady and the darkness, that was just so great. But they all did a wonderful job.
They did.
This is like a Sophie's Choice almost of who you would have to pick, because again, like I consider all these people our friends.
I think the hardest part to deal with is the fact that like the reason the Whisperer to me doesn't fit in the setting period, because like I brought up, Cannibal kind of fits thematically, not as a stalker necessarily, but definitely fits within the scope of the setting. And
he talked about like the dystopian nature of the setting, and he definitely sold it on that level.
The Whisperer would be way outside of the norm for the setting with the psychic powers and things like that, and the government wouldn't let a TV show have something like that. They would just be using him. They would just pull him away and be like, no,
some weapon.
You can't be a stalker. You're going to work.
So I guess in summary, it's rating each one out of 10 like we've been doing in the past. That doesn't really work for the concept of this episode.
Too much to discuss with it.
Yeah, so again, Hector, we agree with Jack that he won the round. He had the best combo of stalker and host.
Yep.
And then second place, Tom, and then third place, Raul.
Yeah.
Such a great discussion, great movie, guys. If y'all haven't seen it, seriously, go watch it. It's so awesome.
For my note, I would put Raul over Tom, if only because I think Wayne Brady's a stronger host than Drew Carey, but only just so. Because the Cannibal is awesome.
Yes, Patches. He was really cool.
So next we're going to talk about who we would choose.
Yes. Do you want to go first?
So I did some research and I had an idea, and I kind of threw it by the wayside. The actor I would choose is Mike Adamle. Mike Adamle. He was a former football player. He played for the Kansas City Chiefs, the New York Jets, and the Chicago Bears in the scope of like 5 years. And he's been a co-host for American Gladiators, as well as some sort of chairman for the WWE. I don't follow wrestling, so I don't know that much about it. But my thought would be, for the scope of what it would be for the movie, is he would be a retired stalker, gone show host, who comes out of retirement towards the end. And instead of just that one simple scene where the bodyguard's like, nah, man, I'm going to go find some roids, and then Arnold takes out Killian, you would have whoever's playing Richards and Mike Adamle fighting it out.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah.
And so, any other thoughts about like stalkers that you would choose?
Well, he would be the stalker.
He would be a stalker too.
And he would be kind of be filling the role of both Killian and Jesse Ventura's character.
Okay.
The Captain Freedom or whatever his name was.
Yeah, Captain Freedom.
Who is like the retired stalker everybody loves, but instead of just being a retired stalker and spokesman, he became the host of the Running Man, and then he comes out of retirement to take on Richards himself for the government now. So
the way I saw it was, I want to choose someone that, like Raul went with Wayne Brady, clean cut guy, but then when you see him go dark, like it's going to be really interesting. But also someone like Steve Harvey that really does have that darkness to them. That comedy darkness. So I chose Chris Hardwick to be the host, because if you're not familiar with Chris Hardwick, the two of you on the internet who've never heard of him,
he is a comedian.
Comedian and host of the At Midnight game show. And, you kind of use that term loosely because it's kind of like a more structured Who's Line where people are throwing out jokes and the points really don't matter, but it's just about getting those little quips and jokes and meta humor out there.
It's like Whose Line Is It Anyway for the internet age.
Yes. And so he also was the host of MTV's Singled Out, co-host with Jenny McCarthy back in probably like the mid to late 90s.
Somewhere around
and this was before he became super duper handsome Chris Hardwick.
Yeah.
And so I just think that he would be an excellent host because, on the surface, like playing that Damon Killian character, like with all of that charisma. But if you've ever seen Chris Hardwick's stand-up comedy, there is some darkness in him. He has gone through a lot in his personal life and struggles, and he may be doing well now, but he hasn't always been.
Well, and he's just like a kind of a dirty comedian as it is. Like he's a very internet comedian. I mean, he doesn't make jokes for the Hallmark Channel. He makes jokes for the MTV crowd
and Comedy Central, HBO, those kind of things. So. And I think that like his level of humor, and then again the stuff in his background that has kind of made him who he is. He's a very neurotic person.
Yep.
And I don't know if that always shows up on things like At Midnight and the other hosting gigs that he does. So he definitely has the acting chops to play the character, but also have that darkness to him as well, where you won't be so surprised to see him, you know, pulling off those Damon Killian-isms where, you know, when he's off screen, he's being so rude to his assistants, which I doubt. I mean, I'm not saying Chris Hardwick is a rude person. I think it would be a good contrast, because when Richard Dawson played the character originally, like, you would see, like, you know, he was a very beloved host. Mm-hmm. And so seeing those behind the scenes of him being rude and such, you know, is like it's a very interesting character. So I think Chris Hardwick could match him toe for toe.
Yeah.
And then my thought was kind of like to differentiate the movie a little, but not go so far off the rails where it's one of those remakes where it's like, why even call it The Running Man anymore?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I could see Chris Hardwick's character getting bored with the concept of the show and wanting things to change, and that's why he would go with someone like Richards, because he could bring a new element to the show. And, you know, and see, like, what kind of chaos could reign, but then it kind of gets out of his hand because of Richard's training. And then as far as stalkers go, I don't know if I would really change any of the concepts up too much from the original. I thought all of those were really great, but instead of making them the, you know, 2019 version of 1987, we'll make them the 2016 version of whatever future we would set the movie in 30 years from now, so in like the 2040s.
Yeah.
Because I think that's how they would probably have to go if they would want to match up the remake to fit with the theme, because, you know, 30 years in the future from the 80s is now, and so that we would have to go into the 40s from here. So it'll be interesting to see, because really, if you were going to remake this movie, like, thematically, there's not really a reason to, but to update the technology and maybe a few themes. But other than that, this is definitely not a movie that you would need to remake.
Well, and thematically, it's timeless.
Yeah.
Because it's talking about social injustice with dystopian futures and authoritarian systems, totalitarianism, that kind of stuff. So it's it's like how RoboCop, when they're like, we're remaking RoboCop, we're like, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
And then it was okay.
I mean, I haven't seen it, so I can't judge.
Yeah,
so
that's fair. All right, let's head over to the Twitterverse and see what's shaking there.
Yeah, we basically asked the same question that Jack asked. So people were choosing their own stalkers and their own host. So first up, we have Billy Pollahan at B-Buster Bill. Said that Ryan Seacrest would be his host, which I thought was a very excellent choice.
It is.
And then his stalkers would be Hercules, a big juggernaut, Deathstrike, a ninja-like assassin and Apache, who is a Native American tomahawk/knife-throwing opponent. All right, next up we have Austin Singleton at Weird One, who said Neil Patrick Harris would be his host. Again, a great choice.
Yep.
And his stalkers would be The Rock, Stephen Amell, and John Barrowman, which is very similar to something that Cal said in his tweet. Cal said that Drew Carey would probably be a lot like the original host. Mm-hmm. And again, Stephen Amell, The Rock, Tony Jaa, and Jason Statham would be his stalkers. The Drunksman, who is the co-host of the DVD Bunker, along with Brian, excellent show if you haven't checked that out, said that he would choose Triumph the Insult Comic Dog.
It's a very out-of-the-box choice.
That's definitely very interesting. And his stalkers would be Ed 209, which is from RoboCop. Stephen Hawking.
And Taylor
Swift. And Taylor Swift.
Well, I mean, we know it would destroy the relationship of Richards.
Yeah, maybe they were dating.
Maybe she'd write a song about it.
Yes. All right, well, that about wraps up this episode of BFF. We'd like to give a couple of shout-outs to some awesome people. One of them mentioned earlier, Austin. Mm-hmm. He makes all of our little transitional and intro animations.
Yep.
So kudos to him for doing that, because we don't know how.
No.
We don't have that level.
Not even close.
And then a huge shout out to Jeannine at Jeannine the Bean, who made our logo for us.
Yep.
Super awesome. You can go to TeePublic and see all of her cool designs at Jeannine Designs. If you like our show, you can buy the shirt of our logo.
Yeah.
And
I think you can get mugs too at some point.
Yeah, mugs, and there's all sorts of cool stuff there. Any of the TUFF merch is up on her store. She makes all of our logos. She's super awesome.
Go throw your support at her.
Yes. All right, if you want to keep up with us on the internet and let us know what you thought of this episode, who you would choose for a stalker, or anything related to TUFF, BFF, whatever.
Maybe you don't like my hair.
Or maybe you don't like mine. I don't know. Maybe you want to know how I did this eyeliner. Hint, I didn't.
That's fair.
You can follow both of us on Twitter. I'm at _Mrs. Davis.
And I'm at Drake Masters.
All right. Well, we'll see you next time where we'll be talking about some other movie that was on a fan fiction episode that we haven't seen.
Nope.
Who knows what it'll be?
Yep.
We don't know.
Mm.
We'll find out, though. Bye.
I also just realized, and we'll cut this part out necessarily, but we'll need word bubbles because I believe the name is Scraps.
Was it Scraps?
I thought so. I think so. Not important. So, but this can be in the after credits.
Yes. Oh, man. Are you serious?
I think so.
Why did we not write that down?
Because we didn't think we.
I think Patches is a better name, Tom. You should have gone with that in the past.
It's a good name for crazy.
It is a good name for crazy.